tangata he Māori reo he Māori ora he Māori ora
In this episode of Oro Rua, James Webster is joined by Ringa Toi Tāmihana Kātene, no Ngāti Tuarangatira, no Ngāti Tama, no Ngāti Koata, mo te tau ho Ngāti Whātua. In this episode they explore Tāmihana's love for te ao Māori and how he approaches his taonga pūoro practice. With a deep love for te reo me ona tīkanga, Tāmihana shares his journey in searching for traditional mediums for the transmission of tūpuna kōrero, and how this has shaped his path in ensuring that the kaupapa of taonga pūoro is carried to our tamariki mokopuna through the traditional practices of haka, mōteatea and karakia. Nō reira I te iwi, whakarongo mai.
Nau mai kia hau manu
Whakarongo rā hine rau ka taure ki te ahurewa, ki te pūkenga, ki te wānanga, ki taura, ki te tauira. E te pū ngā weo, ngā alito, ngā taki, I te ororo, I te ororo. Te ororo a I o matua, te ororo nui, te ororo roa. Te ororo ki rangi nui e tu nei, ki papatua nuku e tākato nei. Te oro te pū tōre no e pū wawau ana ko te pū a te hui e pū a maina. He rea ki a tāne nui a rangi. Ko te kārango te manu e whio nei, ko te ngere o te nguru e ngunguru mai nei. Ke teke te ana te kākakuku, ana te kereru titi, ana te tīrai raka. Tī ahu aki ana I te ataha para mawhiti mai rā, ko tamanui tērā. Kia uhi I wero, tau mai te oro Māori. Ui e, hui e, tāi
ki e.
Ako tēnei, e hui tātou, e haumanu, e mihi atu ki a koutou katoa, ngā hunga I whakarongo mai nei ki wenei o nā podcast me ki. Ki te noho nei, ki te kōrero atu ki a Tāmihana Kātene. So, nei rā ka mihi atu ki a koe e hoa.
Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Ngāti tō rangatira. Kia mihi ake ki a koutou, o ki a koe, e ki te taumai ki a whakawātia I tō wātaka. Kia tatu mai ki te kōrero taua I pāna I tēnei o nā kaupapa manawa mā taua. E leo etahi o tātou e whakarongo mai nei ki wenei o nā kōrero ka kōrero hia. Wenei o nā mahi o ngā taonga pūoro, te ao pūoro. So koe nei, nau mai hara mai tau mai ki te kōrero rotia I pāna tēnei kaupapa. He manawa nui mā taua. So koe nei, he mihi ake nau mai, hara mai, tau mai ki tēnei mahi.
Nā, tēnā koe.
Tēnei pēr ka timata, ko wai koe, no he koe, he ato aronga ki tēnei o nā mahi ngā taonga pūoro, he manawa mau.
Tēnā koe, hoti rā tēnā tātou. Tēnā hoki ki te tiringirongiro e whakarongo ana ki tēnei huhupe. Rere ana ko whakaro I nei wātoni nei, ko Tāmihana Kātene tōku ingoa. Huri tēnei o te tau ko Ngāti Whātua, ko Ngāti Tama, ko Ngāti Koata, ko Ngāti Tuarangatira. I hoia mai o ku tūpuna maranga ngā waka e rua ko mā huhu ki te rangi, mai Hawaii ki te awa kaipara, me te waka nui a tainui. No hoi o ku tūpuna I raro I ngā taumarumaru o ngā maunga e rua. Ko rangi tuhi ki te tonga ko toka ki te raki. No reira, tēnei mihi atuana, kia koe kei taku hoa. Tēnei mihi atuana. Kia ora. Yeah, tēnā koe, bro. So, I started my journey in taonga pūoro maybe about 15, it's going on 18 or so years ago now. When I was started, I was actually learning to play the yidaki, the didgeridoo. And I got fascinated with the circular breathing, the tangata mui ya, and the way that they played and that they controlled their breath, and that really fascinated me. So I was learning how to play that, and that's when I was learning circular breathing, and then I was like, oh man, I wonder if Māori have any kind of instruments, with quotation marks, like this. And then that was the start of it. Ko taku ngā koe nui ki te ao pūoro started from that little drop of, I wonder. And then moving on from there, I think I heard snippets from Te Ku Te Whē, from Papa Hirini, when Papa Hirini were playing. I heard the oro, and I just absolutely got obsessed with that oro, that feeling when I heard that sound and I felt that vibration, and that's what I started searching for. You know, as you know, bro, you start you find something that sparks your interest, and down the rabbit hole you go.
For sure.
So that was back when I started. I was not a carver, and I didn't have any taonga pūoro. The only pūoro that I had was a Pacific Trident conch shell that has a hole in the side, like from our whanaunga over in the Monanu Yakiwa. And that's the only thing I knew about it. And then slowly obsession set in. And
down the rabbit hole, eh? Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole. Koira.
Yeah, because I've known you for a little while now. I can't remember. I think the first time we met was Honga Weka Marae many moons ago. There was, we were running a taonga pūoro wānanga down there with Te Papa. And I think you, if my memory serves me right, you were part of the whakaero rōpū at the Polytech down there, and you just came in to have a look at taonga pūoro. And yes, we're very fascinated. We were doing pūkaia and doing hue, and just smorgasbord of taonga pūoro kaupapa, and sort of gotten to know you over the years, and we're all part of the Haumanu Collective now, so I just want to mihi atu to my bro Warren, because I started the journey by myself really, just started researching and doing stuff, but the first time that I actually got a real push into te ao pūoro was when I met Warren down at Whitirea Polytech. Because our tutor was James Mona, and Warren's his cousin, so he brought Warren Warbrick into wānanga with us, and I cracked up the first time I saw the bro. He rocked up with an English red coat on, and heru in his hair, and the style, the swag of the man. But yeah, the mihi atuana kia Warren, he did a lot of guiding of a lot of us in the first section, so mihi atu katika. I understand you're a bit of an IT man as well, and dabbled in whakaero and putting your hand to tāmoko now, and a real advocate for te reo Māori, mōteatea, karakia, e reo ngā mea. Maybe tell us a little bit about, your specialties and, what it is that really sort of turns you on relative to taonga pūoro.
As you mentioned, I'm a carver, wood, stone and bone, and i ngā marama ko tahi aki nei, ke tāpiri atu ki te kiri. So I just started the last 6 months or so, I've been working on moko. In the last couple of days I've been doing a couple of pieces, which has been awesome. But yeah, my love is for te ao Māori, and that was something that really took me a long time to find. I grew up in Takapuahia and Purirua, surrounded by highly religious Mormon whānau, and it was a lot of family home evenings and a lot of the practices of the Mormon church in Purirua. That was the way we lived. Where Kōrero was deep into the Mormon church, and he was a composer and an arranger of their musics. And we used to go up to Kōrero's place and sleep in the lounge. Me and my brothers and sister, we'd wake up to Kōrero at 2 o'clock in the morning doing compositions and arrangements on his baby grand piano. The music side of things, that's kind of where the passion started, was listening to Kōrero. He was the choir master for the New Zealand Māori chorale. Yeah. And we used to go around judging waitatira and haka, and I used to follow him around. And so that side of the musical waitatira arrangement, the passion for that side of things kind of epipuaka I ki ngā reke reke o toko koraua, ki Takapuahia. My papa, my dad, Callum, the majority of his life he fell deeply in love with the sciences. And so that was his pursuits and most of the things he did. When we were kids, he was a TV repairman when we were young. So he used to leave old broken down TVs on the deck with a whole bunch of screwdrivers and stuff and just let us have a tutu with it. And so that's where our kind of hau tutu nature came from. And I think that's really important for carvers and for Ringa Toi, is to have that kind of, just have a crack at it kind of mentality. And see what you can come up with. And that's where that came from. But the carving, I just, like a duck to water, bro. As soon as I got my first chisel, I cut myself with it, which is, well, as we all do. And then started to learn to sharpen. And as soon as I started removing wood, for that first time, it was just like an obsession started. And just that feeling that when you're shaping wood, you're addressing the problems that you find with the grain, all that kind of thing that really, really resonates with me. And I think that may be, undiagnosed ADHD or whatever. The attention span, like many Māori kids go through in Aotearoa and trying to just struggle through. Like a lot of artists that I know, the same. They find a soothing path through mahi toi. And so when I started with wood, that was awesome. I started making pūoro and trying to copy ones that I saw in the collections at Te Papa. Warren was a big influence on the making of pūoro at that time. He was adamant about don't make them pretty to start off with. Just focus on the inside, focus on the form, the shape, focus on finding the oro. And so for the first 5 years of making pūoro, I left them completely blank. Just experimenting and playing with little differences and changing the way that I approached the inside of the pūoro and how it kind of changed the way that the pūoro can sing. And then, after years and years on wood, I had my first crack at bone and I fell in love with that too.
Down the rabbit hole again.
down another rabbit hole. So went down to the local butchers and got got a box of cannon bones for $50 and prepared them up and got a $200 machine off eBay to have a crack at it. And
eBay, eh? Back in the day when eBay was around, eh? Showing your age there, bro.
It was out of it. So I got a little micro motor machine, 45,000 RPMs, and I ordered on eBay $200 from wherever in Asia to my door, and I've made at least 100 bone taonga with it in the years that I've had it. So, and then messing with those, then you get some diamond bits, burrs and stuff, and start playing around with stone and pakohe, and I'm just setting up the water system and run the diamond gear for Pounamu. Another rabbit hole.
Burrowing now, you're burrowing, bro. Just joining all the rabbit holes up together, eh?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And coming back to my original kōrero, all of these things that I've fallen in love with over the years, they all come back to the one common denominator, and that is my love for te ao Māori. During this time of learning to carve and learning to, to whainga akuatanga kui mā koroma, the biggest struggle for me actually was to find my reo. Well, I didn't grow up with the reo. I grew up understanding the reo, but not speaking it, because tahi waia, tahi oko kuia koraua, they used to growl us into reo Māori, so we knew what that meant. But yeah, finding my reo, that's been a struggle. And because of that struggle, my love and my passion for it has really, really deepened. Yeah,
let's just have a chat about that too, because, a lot of us Māori, myself included, not brought up with the reo and all that, but being gifted these skills and tools to create and make taonga Māori and all that, and just come up with those barriers, relative to the reo, because the reo, it's all the coding, in the reo.
Yeah.
And for myself, that's been one of my biggest journey, along with, finding my superpowers relative to carving and my skills as a craftsperson. Yeah, it's been one of my biggest journeys, but I know talking to a lot of people in te ao Māori and taonga pūoro, that is, quite a big struggle, So,
absolutely.
How did you find your voice? Or
yeah, I got chucked in the deep end. Yeah, so a lot of people hear me speak these days, and they see me, leading our cultural practices and karakia, mōteatea and haka on composition, all that stuff. And a lot of people assume that, I was born and bred native speaker, and it's absolutely not true. I struggled my ass off to learn that reo, and it's really hard, especially for people like me who are, one of the things I remember from being a kid is being told that I was only going to be good to be a road worker. And that's the stuff that it sticks with you, and you doubt yourself. And when I first started in Te Reo, I was really scared of it, because I had this, people on the outside looking in, they had this perception of this fella that should be able to do these things, and it used to freak me out when I had to do it. And basically, I started learning because I was in a position of leadership, and I needed to get up and speak on behalf of a group of people. And the couple of times that I did it, I was just so embarrassed with how poorly I tutuki that kaupapa that lit a fire in me. Because it's a whole different story when you're a mango, when you're a waha for a group of people. You're not speaking for yourself. You're not representing yourself. You're representing the people. And I was so embarrassed at one of my performances in the whai kōrero one time that I was just determined that would never happen again. And from that point on, and that was about 15 years ago too, that point on I was, ka mana wa kairoke, go and just pai tū pai hinga, get it done. That's one of the really controversial things about Te Reo Māori these days is a lot of people talk about the barriers in learning Te Reo, the intergenerational traumas and the barriers from colonization, etc., etc. And I'm, to be honest, it kind of makes me a little bit angry. These days, in modern society in Aotearoa, it has never been easier to learn Te Reo Māori.
Yep.
There's so much love and passion for it at the moment with the Reo champions that have been putting in the hard yards and providing opportunities for people to learn Te Reo. Learning to speak Te Reo Māori is a choice in these modern times. And that's something that, for me personally, when I made that choice to pai tū pai hinga, kia au ki te reo a kui mā koroma, that was the choice that I made. And come hell or high water, I was learning. Our kui and kōrero, they used to get beaten for speaking Te Reo. There's a very, very different society where I'd encourage anyone who's umming and erring about Te Reo Māori is just to sink into it, become one with it. It's such a beautiful thing that once you start learning the reo, then you get encompassed in the culture and the relationships with people. And
I found because I went through ātārangi sort of back in the day when I was in Waikato, and I felt that it was more than just a language for communications. It was like a healing. It was a healing journey. It's sort of like you go into it, whakamā, like yourself, just kore take as. Still consider myself a little bit like that, but I've learned enough to carry myself and hold myself in different situations, and but you can always keep elevating yourself for sure in relationship to the journey of learning the reo. And like you too, bro, I just encourage people to apply themselves, because there's always heaps of excuses for why you can't but you just got to find all the reasons for why you can.
One of my karaua used to say you can have excuses or results, not both.
Yeah, that's right, bro.
That always
comes to me. Sounds like a very wise man there, karaua.
Ai koro. With an understanding of Te Reo comes a lot of the mātauranga that we can apply to taonga pūoro. Like sometimes when I describe our cultural practices, there are scientific processes that are disguised as cultural practices. When we get into te karakia and you start talking about, one of the karakia for whakairo, tēnei taku toki ko te toki nui, ko te toki rua, ko te toki tūhaha. Tēnei taku toki whakakoia hine toa hoanga I hangai tia ki ngā whatua pautini. There's everything that you need to know about the toki for carving is in this karakia. As I hangai tia ki ngā whatua pautini talks about being made from the eyes of pautini, which nā kōrero nā pūrako is the source of pounamu. And pounamu and pakohe, so the materials from then, I whakakoia ki ngā kia hine tuahuanga, talks about the our atua of sandstone and the shaping and the sharpening. I find with my passion for Te Reo Māori and haka, mōteatea, karakia, you find these little like snippets of brilliance, when you start to understand them. And they really, really do guide my approach and my practice to taonga pūoro and to carving in general. But yeah, Te Reo Māori is just so beautiful. Get at it, taima. Get at it.
Yeah, for sure. So with the reo, learning your reo and all that sort of stuff, I know you're quite passionate about mōteatea and karakia. How does that sort of equate to your practice as a taonga pūoro practitioner.
Yeah, because karakia, mōteatea, and haka, so that's one of my other great passions is the composition of karakia, mōteatea, and haka. One of the things that I've found really discouraging is how little there is about taonga pūoro in our traditional mediums for the passing on of knowledge, like haka, mōteatea, karakia. So now I've been searching for a long time, and there are snippets, there are little things here and there that I've found, and there may be some out there that I don't know of. I'd love to have a wānanga and kōrero. Anyone out there that's listening have any mōteatea and karakia, etc. about pūoro? That's a wānanga for us to have, me taima. But I've been searching for a long time, and I haven't found any substantial taonga pūoro mātauranga that's held within karakia mōteatea. Those are the things that we amahi akui mā koromata to pass on, the mātauranga that we capture and that we carry. It's in those mediums, haka, mōteatea, karakia, that these things need to be carried on, to keep our traditions of learning. I was searching for a long time, hadn't found anything, and the thing for me is, well, they're not there. By the time we started making them, then it's when I decided it was the right time to start composing karakia, composing mōteatea, specifically to hold the mātauranga of taonga pūoro, so that we can carry on this knowledge that we've struggled for, for me about 20 years, for you more, and so that the next generations don't have to fight to try and find it. Yep. That it's there in our traditions, we're teaching our young ones mōteatea, and in that mōteatea is talking all about hine rau katauri and awe atu. And my heart starts thumping when I think about it. It sounds amazing.
No, that's correct. Yes, I can hear your passion, bro. For those that may not understand karakia mōteatea, maybe you can break down a little snippet of one of your compositions, maybe four lines or 5 lines or something, just to give people an insight how that sort of works, and how the mātauranga is conveyed within those karakia or mōteatea meki.
Yeah, kopai. One of the things I love is sharing a little section of this karakia oro that I composed for pūoro. So the karakia itself is called tū te manawa ru, and it talks about the manawa, but not as in the heart, but manawa as in the breath. And so the tū te manawa ru talks about the quivering breath, the wiri, the jitters that you get when you're thinking about other people watching you play when you're a newbie. The full version is quite long and it's quite complicated, but I think the 4th verse is a section that I've pulled out frequently, and whenever I have wānanga, we print it out and we give it out on a little piece of paper, a little piece of card. This little section, this little verse is one that I really, really want people to. This is my koha to te ao pūoro, toha toha atu, spread it out so that people that are on a journey into te ao pūoro have something to comfort them when they feel they need tuku karakia but don't have any ability to. I'll just go through it quickly. Whakarongo rā tāne te tokorangi ki te whewheo rau katauri, ki te waio hine ki te oro rua rangi ki te kōkiri haimata. Whakarongo rā ki te huangungu ru ki te huangongo ro ki te ngu o toku ihu, haumi e hui e, tāki e. It's short, which is what I really like about it. It's really short, easy to learn. People have taught it to, have picked it up in a couple of hours and carry it on. But the reason I like this verse so much is because of actually how much mātauranga is jam-packed into it. Okay, so I'll just break it down so that when we're learning this karakia and we're reciting it, we understand what we're saying, which is really important to me. So whakarongo rā tāne te tokorangi, it's quite straightforward. So we're talking to tāne māhuta, tāne te waiora, tāne nui ārangi, one of his other names, tāne te tokorangi. Ko ia tēnā I toko waiorangi nui e tuakeni. So we're talking to tāne māhuta, and we're asking him to listen. Whakarongo rā tāne te tokorangi, ki te whewheo o rau katauri. In our traditions of taonga pūoro, our atua for taonga pūoro, and one of the most prominent atua is hine rau katauri. And we who follow this path are intimately joined and bound with hine rau katauri. She's guided a lot of what we've done for a long time. And so we're talking, this section here, we're talking about hine rau katauri who loved her taonga pūoro so much that she made it her home, and the basis of that home is the inspiration for the pūtorino. And so we're asking tāne to listen to his daughter ki te whiowhio o rau katauri. And the whiowhio is an old word that I found, and it describes like a humming sound. So it's not like a actual singing, it's not like a playing. It's a soft, intimate hum. Whakarongo rā, tāne te tokorangi ki te whiowhio o rau katauri. So we're asking Tāne to listen to his daughter and listen to her hum. And the imagery behind that, the reason why it's a hum and it's not listen to her sing, is because I find it's in those really intimate moments that just you and your pūtorino, you or your kōauau or your nguru, and it's just the conversation between your breath and the taonga pūoro. Those are the really special times. Not necessarily when you're standing up and playing in front of a whole bunch of people, but when you're finding a quiet time and on the beach and just quietly expressing your oro. That's what that part there is about talking to Tāne to listen to this quiet, intimate experience of his daughter, Hine rau katauri. The next line, ki te wai o hine, ki te oro rua rangi, ki te kōkiri haimata. Those three lines, in my practice, there are three different voices that we play through the pūtorino. There are different variations, and, kei te raiwi, tō rāta wake kōrero. But in my practice, there are the three voices to the pūtorino. The first is te wai o hine, and the song of Hine rau katauri, and it's played through the puare, the top mouthpiece. The second, te wai o hine ki te oro rua rangi. Oro rua rangi is it's the name for another one of our taonga pūoro, but one of the reservations that I had personally about the naming of these reo when I was growing up, and when I was learning te reo Māori, and then I applied what I learned from te reo Māori to the taonga pūoro space, was the naming of the reo of the pūtorino. And one of the names was that I kept on hearing was te reo te whānau, which was played through the middle section, the middle māngai of the pūtorino. And I really didn't think that was an appropriate name. I think it was a overly simplified cop-out, to be honest, because te reo Māori is capable of explaining things in such a deep and meaningful way that I thought that this lacked substance, te reo te whānau. And so we had a wānanga with a few of my homies here, and te upoko te ika, just throwing ideas around, and we applied the name Oro Rua rangi. Now, when you break it down, I think the Oro Rua rangi is really appropriate for that voice. And because the Oro Rua rangi talks about the Oro Rua, these two different oro that come from two different sources and join to become one. And I think that's really, really important for us to think about, because, te reo te whānau talks about the voice of the family, which is descriptive enough when you translate it to English. But when you talk about, ko tō taha māma, ko tō taha pāpa, these two different sources of oro, the masculine and the feminine, and joining those two together, and ka puta mai, ngā tamariki mokopuna, those are the oro rua rangi. These two oro from two different sources joined together to become one. It's a much more beautiful way an in-depth way of explaining the cultural philosophy behind that reo, that call, that voice. And the third voice of the pūtorino in my practice is there's another one I had to think about the names, because I didn't think it matched either. The common term for it was te reo te tāne, the call of the male, the masculine. Again, I thought that was shallow. And so again, we had a wānanga. We started talking about how could we describe this voice. And the voice of that I'm referring to is the trumpeting voice. It's so you play the pūtorino like you're playing a pūtātara, pūmoana, pūpakapaka, and it's a natural wooden trumpeting sound. And for me, when I think about that sound, it's about balancing out the graceful feminism of Hine rau katauri. For me personally, te ao Māori is all about balance. There is no one energy that is above and beyond the other. It's all about finding equilibrium, finding balance. And so on one side we have the divine feminine, we have Hine rau katauri and her song and her hum that we're talking about. And on the other side we have to balance that graceful femininity with the masculinity, because in te ao Māori, those two walk hand in hand and side by side. So I came up with this term, the kōkiri haimata. Kōkiri haimata. And the kōkiri haimata refers to a vigorous movement, a vigorous expression. And one of the things I loved about our old kuia korau and the pre-colonial mōteatea is that they didn't mince their words. When they wanted to talk about stuff in the way that they viewed the world, they did. We talk about the ure tārewa and all these things, and where talking about a genitalia, etc. It's only now that, in modern westernized society, that's kind of inappropriate.
So,
I love it.
Censor day.
Yeah, the missionaries heard us talking about genitals and blah blah blah, and they didn't like it. So, but I really do like that. The vulgar expression at times, but the kōkiri haimata is it's almost got vulgar connotations of a male thrust. The masculine thrusting, which is balanced out by the graceful femininity of Hine Rauka Tauri. So it's those two different sources of oro, the male, the female, the masculine, the feminine, and those two oro joining together to become one. And that's only 3 lines in the karakia.
Yeah.
The 3 different names for the waiohine, te oro rua rangi, te kōkiri haimata. But there's a lot of mātauranga behind it. And this is what really gets me excited about composition of these types of taonga for our mokopuna, is that we can compose things like this, but if we don't sit down with them and get them to understand it, then mau wā. So, whakarongo rā tāne te tokorangi ki te whio rauka tauri, ki te waiohine, ki te oro rua rangi, ki te kōkiri haimata. Okay, next part, whakarongo rā ki te huangunguru, ki te huangongoro. In my research, I came across a term for sound. Now I'm not talking about shoes. So the huangunguru. So hu is a term for it's a term, the old term that I use in the context that I found it in. I believe it was referring to sound. So te huangunguru, te huangongoro is talking about the sounds of the ngongoro, which are sounds associated with the sounds of the nose. One of the things that I really like to pass on to tauira when we wānanga this karakia is that we start talking about why the nose is so important to us. Why do we hongi? And why do we play certain taonga pūoro through the nose and not with the mouth? This pays homage, this section, these 2 lines, draw the emphasis onto understanding the breath of the nose. And because when we think about the breath of the nose, we think about playing things with the nose, we start to think about why. And the thing that we have to think about is the states of tapu and noa. And this is one thing that I really, really try to push home to any tauira that we wānanga with, is when you're thinking about playing taonga pūoro and navigating between tapu and noa and the mahi that we're doing. A lot of people just pick them up and just jam them these days. But there is a tīkanga, there is a way of approaching taonga pūoro that definitely encompasses the realms of tapu and noa. Now, the breath with the mouth, how we play a lot of things, how we tuku karanga, karakia, pao, all those other things, it's quite hard to navigate sometimes because of how frequently it comes into contact with food. And te ao Māori, food is a way to whakanoa. And so when we took a karakia and we go to a state, our tohunga, they couldn't touch food. Food was given directly into their mouths, etc. In our modern societies, our food is such a free and available thing that the breath of the mouth is always moving between tapu and noa, but not just because of food, but because of being humans, being wanga and whawhai and, just being a dick and, change.
Yeah. Don't be a dick.
Change the way that that the tapu and our waha. To completely bypass that trouble going between tapu and noa, we move directly to the breath of the nose, which is always tapu. It doesn't come into contact with kai. Well, unless, e tahi o rātou I kainga e tahi taru ki ngā punga ihu. Engari, the majority of the time we can directly bypass that tapu and noa state through the mouth and go directly to the nose, which is why we play the punga ihu, the hue punga ihu, the kuaua punga ihu with the nose. It is always tapu. So this te huangunguru, te huangongoro pays tribute to that cultural philosophy, that the breath of the nose is tapu always. The breath of the mouth is changing between those states, so you have to manage it. So whakarongo rā tāne te tokorangi ki te whio rauka tauri, ki te waiohine, ki te oro rua rangi, ki te kōkiri haimata. Whakarongo rā ki te huangunguru, ki te huangongoro, ki te ngū o tōku ihu, haumia hui e tāiki e. That line there was... I pinched it off Papa Hirini because he used to use it quite a lot. And that's almost like a tribute to Papa Hirini to keep his kōrero alive in my work. In modern te reo Māori, we think of kia ngu, kia wahangu to be silent. But in my perusings of my thoughts and my whakaaro, I think, to be ngu is a different type of sound, is a different type of oro. It's not just the lack of it. So to sit in ngu is not necessarily to be completely silent. Just a variation of the oro. So that's a little section of the karakia oro te manawaru that I composed for taonga pūoro. And it was my gift to te ao pūoro. Take it, learn it, share it. But with the words comes the whakamarama. Please, if you're going to learn it, please make sure that you understand, the whakamarama that we just went through.
Yeah, do your rangahau, get the kupu, learn that, and do your own rangahau too, relative to what's been given and shared.
Yeah, hara.
There's a couple of things that come out of that for me was, when you're talking about those voices, when you look at the ecology and the cycles of the moth itself, and, you talk about the masculine and the feminine, and, what happens to the tāne after he's, gifted his taonga, he gets consumed and pulled into the whare tūngaunga as kai for future generations. So, and the other one, I think Rangieri is and Libby's kōrero is about the ihu and the waha. And they talk about how the ihu's tapu and the breath sort of noa, but because you can talk smack out of your mouth, but you can't out of your nose.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. So it just allows that breath to flow. Awesome, bro. Thanks for sharing that insight and that koha for the listeners. What are your sort of dreams and aspirations relative to where you're at with taonga pūoro today? Because, we've been listening to a few podcasts from our first series, and it's been quite interesting for me because it's just brought up heaps of different kaupapa that I've been exposed to over the years, and made me question my own practices from because I've been at it over 30 years or so, and where I've come from and where I am today, and some of those questions that have arisen and just triggered, for myself as a practitioner over the years. But, to me too, that's all just about the growth and the learning, everything evolves, and, what was prevalent yesterday may not be for tomorrow. So, so where you're at with that sort of kōrero.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the things I've been a little bit worried about lately is how quickly te ao pūoro is growing. Here in Te Upoko Teika, we have a thriving taonga pūoro community. There's heaps of us down here.
Yeah, we're a bit jelly about that, bro.
Yeah, there's lots of tuakana down here, lots of tuakana and tāne mai, wahine mai, lots of tauira, and it's really thriving. One of the things I'm a little bit worried about is how quickly things are moving. Because, when you get excited about something and you just want to get into it and pump into it and you don't really take the time to look at what's actually happening. One of the things I'm worried about is the way that some of our taonga pūoro tīkanga is being merged with tīkanga from other tangata whenua around the world. This one fellow was having a jam, which is cool. He had a jam, and then he grabbed one of the Native American drone flutes and was trying to, was passing the oro off as oro Māori. And for me, that's not right. Kia whanoko, kia tāhai, I etahi tīkanga mai tangata ki atu. And so one of the things I'm really, really keen for us to do while we're capturing this momentum that we've got is to take the time to think about and to acknowledge what's happening with the pūoro, and that we do things firmly rooted in tīkanga Māori. The further I go in this journey, further down this rabbit hole I go as a carver, the more vocal I become about how people are making taonga pūoro. That for me is a big thing too. All of us who make cool stuff, we have influences from other people that we've seen do things. And one of the things that's important for me is that we acknowledge that the things that we're making still need to be Māori. They need to be trenched in tīkanga, and they need to be I don't know. Sometimes I feel like a bit of a dick because I'm like, bro, what are you up to? But the more I go into this journey, the more I find it's a responsibility for people like us to say something. A couple of examples of pūoro being made from different mediums, and that's cool, as long as it's acknowledged that our tīkanga does not include those mediums. One of the things I had a kōrero with my koro about when I first started carving was because I was a hand tool man. I was like, no power tools, no machines, no nothing. If you can't do it with your hands, don't do it. And I was having a yarn with my koro about it. And he reckons, boy, you think our tūpuna was so stupid they wouldn't have used a better tool if they had it? And I was like, oh, shit, okay.
So was that the other kōrero?
Yeah.
Excuses or results, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have excuses or results, not both. I'm all for adaptation and movement and innovation, but I really, really feel deep in my puku that we need to make sure that everything that we do is based in our tīkanga. It's not just for innovation's sake. Yeah, having said that, I do use lots of different fancy-ass tools to make stuff. And, I've just got a new machine, an 80,000 RPM micrometer thing, and it's awesome.
Ooh.
It's taking 10,000-year-old cave paintings and putting them on taonga. Yeah, that just doesn't sit right with me. There's a reason that mahi toi has developed and evolved into what it is. And now our tīkanga and our tūpuna showed us the way.
Awesome. Wow, man. That sounds cool. Thanks for your insights. It's a lot of food for thought, especially moving forward and just questioning our practices.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us, bro. One of the main things that I always talk to tauira about is, why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? Why? You don't have to have an answer. I think you just have to ask the question. Koe taku.
Me.
I'm really excited about some of the stuff that's happening, Like, really excited. There's so much good stuff happening with tauira at the moment. And tauira of ours, like, in Te Upoko Teika, like myself and Al Fraser and Sam and Kahu and Kali and Ruby, all the crew that are down here, our students are starting to step up to be tuakana for others as well, which is really cool. One of the things I'm really, really excited about is arming my tauira, our tauira, with tools to teach mātauranga Māori that is important to me and important to us. So starting off with the karakia oro. Yeah, there's only a couple of people that I taught the full thing to, but the little part, tukua kia rere. But the thing I'm excited about as well is mōteatea. The mōteatea is a tradition that kind of gets looked over when it comes to pūoro, because pūoro practitioners are usually playing and then usually not rewa waha.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really excited to capture the things that I've learned about taonga pūoro in pātere. I know those are the pātere that you compose, and I think there's another tool that
needs to be taught, distributed.
But there are other things that I really want to encapsulate to put in mōteatea and karakia form and teach those, so that the focus is the oro side of things, the musical side of things, but also the tīkanga side of things. And they walk hand in hand always. That's really exciting to me. I'd love to see our kura kids doing a pātere about hinero katauri in pūtehue, so that they capture those mātauranga and they carry it on. Maybe
in closing, could share a little bit of pūoro for us, and words of wisdom, or that you could share with I know you've shared heaps of words of wisdom, but just in closing, and then we'll just kapia tō tātu nei wānanga mo te rangi.
One thing that I really want people, the te hunga whakarongo, to think about is why do we call them instruments? Do we call them instruments because they make a sound that we perceive to be music? You know, why do we need to categorize our taonga and describe them based on a completely different musical system that was brought here with tauiwi? For me, taonga pūoro aren't instruments because the oro that they produce isn't music. For me, it's oro. If it works with you to call them instruments and you're practicing, ki te pai. I just encourage the wānanga.
No.
Wānanga is my happy space. Wānanga is, my love is in wānanga and the whakawhiti whakaaro. And to throw different ideas around. I think you can't really be wrong in the way that you practice as long as you're rooted in our tīkanga, in te ao Māori. And for me, that starts with te reo now, because I absolutely love and adore te reo Māori. Ia, no reira, kaya koe remu huia, kaya ko poho ikura tēnei te iti o toa rangatira mihi atuana kia koutou. Kaya koe, kei taku tuakana, mihi atuana, kuni nei ka hihi anau kia whakaoti ai taku peha ki taku moko, mehe mea wāte ana koe karamai kia whakapaipai taku paituara. Nā reira, tēnei mihi atuana koe kei taku rangatira, e mihi atuana. Kia ora.
Nei rā no te mihi kia koe e hoa. Nau anō kua kōrero e au kōrero, kua tukuna ki te ao. Moake tonu atu me ki. Ki te hoatu i tō kōha, tō reo, tō kōrero, tō manawa i pāni tēnei kaupapa. So, mā rungi i te reo nā kōrero, mai i a haumanu kia koe. Nei rā te mihi mō au kōrero i ngā taonga kua tukuna i te rangi nei. So, puera tātou, kua tau anō, tō tau nei kōrero, tau anō te Māori oho, te Māori ārangi, te Māori āpapa, te Māori ā i o te aho tapu e. Ka tau anō i ngā kōrero, i ngā te Māori o ngā atua, tau anō te Māori, i ngā kōrero a ngā tūpuna. Kua tau anō te kōrero, te Māori o te tangata, ka tau ai tō ai, tā te Māori e, ui e, hui e,
tai ki e. Māori ora.
Ko te piko, te mahuri, ko ia te tipu a te rākaui. Heri tā tangata,